Oh, hello there. I didn't notice you. I was busy enjoying my gamer achievement. You see, I've been a master of card roguelike games. I love deck building roguelikes. I love strategy games. I love my roguelikes. You may have seen me stream them and talk about their game design on stream. You may have seen me tweet or post about it on various social medias from time to time if you follow me there. But this achievement right here is one of my stellar achievements of my giga brain and understanding probability and all that. That's right. I'm one of the very few people on, at least on Steam, that has gotten the purity achievement in fights in tight spaces. This is the achievement for beating the highest difficulty of this game, and I did it in less than 3 months. That's right. I got this game. I bought fights in tight spaces around a sale. I think it was a winter sale, and I grinded that game into a nice, finey pace. It was such a great game. I beat with every deck, every archetype. It was one of my favorite card roguelikes of all time. I found out they had a DLC, and I was gonna stomp, and I didn't stomp that yet. I gave myself some time to pause. And go, that's right, GetSelious. Bask in the glory of your card building ways. Bask in fights in tight spaces. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting word that Ground Shatter made a sequel. Raw Fury is publishing it. It's called Knights in Tight Spaces. Oh well, word. Let's get on that. Now, hi. I'm GetSelious, and I'm here to give you my opinion and review of the sequel to Fights in Tight Spaces, Night in Tight Spaces. As you can tell, I really do enjoy Fights in Tight Spaces. I really love the combo aesthetic of the game, the art direction of the first game, and just how great it was. Just pummeling enemies into the ground, slamming them into walls, kicking them through everything. That just felt great. With a card roguelike aesthetic, it made my brain go giga mode. So, I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. Knights in Tight Spaces has a couple of things similar to Fights in Tight Spaces. On a very similar level, almost a very similar layout in its menu. A level up system when you win and lose runs. And they have something new, an equipment meter. That's something new. So, let's go more into what is Fights. I'm sorry, not Fights, because that's the first game. It goes, Knights in Tight Spaces. I wonder if they actually thought of doing that. Let's just rhyme all of our media together. But no. Let's start. So, what I usually do in Knights in any of roguelikes that let you play difficulty, I actually go by playing the easy difficulty first and keep going down and down and down till I play it. Knights in Tight Spaces does a great job doing it, and I love that because of it. It really builds upon its first game. And before I get more into that, I want to give you guys a synopsis of what this game is about. It's, like I said, a sequel to Fight in Tight Spaces in its very way. Its aesthetic is different, using more medieval, but it still has a lot of the same card effects from the first game, such as, like, the front kick and jab. Some of the classic cards from the original game are here, so you don't feel that out of place. And it added some new mechanics, such as how you fight based on weapons you're equipped with, or how party members get added to your game. And I'll get more and more details about that game later, but I want to give a huge shout out to Raw Fury for allowing me to play this game, and they were clearly aware of my gamer percentage of getting the purity achievement. So wink wink, thank you guys for that. So the first of any review I talk about is I generally talk about the graphics and aesthetics of a game, graphics and aesthetics of a video game. Now, what do I mean by graphics and aesthetics? I usually mean, like, how does the game look? How does the game appeal? All that jazz in a nutshell. Like, how does that, how does that all play into itself? Now, generally, when it comes to graphic and aesthetics, I look at the game at what it's trying to do and what it's trying to appeal to. Now, compared to the shadow art of the first game, Fights in Tight Spaces, Knights in Tight Spaces does a decent job of maintaining that medieval look. The sound, I'll talk about sound later, but it definitely looks like a graphical and upgrade. It looks very nice. I like the kind of the rough kind of pencil-y ink edges. The characters, you can tell that on your team are based on color, and you can tell what enemies are based on colors. You have, like, some enemies are purple, which is like ghost enemies or bosses. Some are red, most are red. And the classic defend, in the first game, Informants, defend an innocent civilian, they're all yellow. Overall, graphically and aesthetically, I give this game a 4. It definitely represents the medieval stuff really, really well. It looks cool. It definitely captures that energy of you are a medieval knight, a cleric, a rogue, a brawler, fighting in these taverns, in the streets, in waterfalls. Really good background art stuff across the board. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about generally is how the game sounds. Now, the game musically, I'm not that impressed by it. It's okay. None of the tracks like this feels memorable in my head. The hits sound like hits. They're not as bone crunching as like you would think they would be. I mean, you slam a guy's head into a wall. You kick him down. You kick him over a bar stool. You're smashing guy's head over a rock. You're like hitting them with like casting holy spells. It's okay. The audio and sound effect, it's okay. I get out the way. It's a 3, man. It's justifiable. Nothing overgraded about. But the one thing I'm going to really, really, really start talking about is the gameplay. This gameplay is very similar, but a huge, huge upgrade to fights in tight spaces. Though there are a lot of cards that are similar to the first game, they added a whole new effects based on like how the magic system works and how equipment works and everything. So, much like in fights in tight spaces, you generally had one character you could play with at a time, just one character. Fights in tight spaces, after you complete the prologue, you're able to recruit characters into your party to do stuff. Now, recruiting diversity of characters can increase your chances of winning. What it also does is that it also gives you more momentum, aka energy or mana, the ability to access more cards, to play more cards and access more cards playing them. The interesting part about that is that now your deck is full of cards of other archetypes. If you're playing the Brawler, you're generally good at open-handed cards with the fist momentum on their hand, so you can just play those pretty easily, which is really, really cool. But if you draw a weapon card, Brawlers can't use weapons, so you might have to make your fighter or your cleric or your rogue do that for you. Now, the problem with that is that you have to now learn to position your characters by using movement cards or other cards that affect enemy movement and your movement to put yourself in position for combos. It's like you can push them into walls or use pull to drag them towards you so you can hit them. And this adds a layer of complexity to the game. Now, what I really, really like about this game, much like fights in tight spaces, is, as you may have seen earlier, the difficulty settings. You can play any difficulty, and you can learn the game. Now, the first 2 difficulties of the game are a bit easier, where you're allowed the ability called restart or rewind, where if you felt you did a mess up on your turn, you click that button, and you can redo the whole turn over again. And in those difficulties, I think the first 2 or 3, they will allow you to, if you somehow lost a fight and you want to continue to run, you could just hit restart and try again. So that's kind of neat. Now, the reason why I was so skillful of myself at hitting the Piratist, at higher difficulties, you no longer get the ability to rewind, and you no longer get to reset. It becomes a true roguelike. At that point of the game, you are, for all intents and purposes, now have learned to play the game at the level where you think ahead of your turns, where your runs may take longer, or you know how to do your combos faster, etc. So I really like the game if you're a type of person that scales into it to be quote unquote sweaty. You mean skilled gamer. Skip to the end, skip to the hardest difficulty, or you could just try as you go, learn the game better. Because a lot of hidden mechanics in this game, such as push damage in walls, learning how enemies can do Overwatch and they hit you, learning range of attacks and all that stuff. There's a lot of things you can learn in this game that might be to everyone's speed they learn if they can. The gameplay of itself overall feels smooth, it's snappy. This one has a bit of a story behind it, kind of like Fights in Tight Spaces. The only complaint I have about this game is that, at least Nights in Tight Spaces, that the game feels generally much longer than Fights in Tight Spaces. Fights in Tight Spaces is more pick-upable. You can lose like maybe the third run and then get back into it. This just feels really, really grindy with their side quest system and their the talking spaces and the choices to make. Overall, each run feels, I want to say about maybe 20, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes longer than the previous game. That could be a good thing because, again, you're playing with more characters, so you have much more choices to make. And also, in this game, I think is a really cool idea. They tied the class archetypes into playable characters. In Fight to Tight Spaces, the archetypes were locked in decks you could choose, like aggressive, trickster, defensive, things like that. But if you're not into that type of gameplay style, both of these games, and I love they actually added to this in Night to Tight Spaces, is that you can choose your deck draft in the beginning, as I see being seen early in the early image, that you could just do a deck draft mode, pick a character archetype you like, and draft the deck the way you want it. And I think it's cool. If you want to do it that way, play it that way. Generally, I didn't feel that the bosses in the game were that difficult in my first 3 attempts of the game, mainly because I have experience playing it. The RNG feels really good. The only thing that gets more difficult as the game goes on is that you realize that your movement cards are kind of important, and positioning your teammates are a big, big deal. So, you feel that way. I generally like one of the archetypes I like to add in the game. I like the Rogue, and I like the Magic class archetype. I think Cleric and the Sorcerer are really cool additions to the game. My personal opinion is that if you played Fights in Tight Spaces and you want an easy class to pick up and go, I don't recommend the Warrior. I actually recommend the Brawler. The Brawler has all the aesthetics that you enjoy about Fights in Tight Spaces. They have the wall jump punch, they have the jab, they have all the quick movement. They play like the aggressive / balanced deck of the game with Trickster. They seem to be the most built in the game for those who played the previous game. But if you want to try something new, Sorcerer can be up your alley, and Rogue. Those are my top 2 favorite classes I enjoy. Especially if you pair a Sorcerer, if you start with Sorcerer, and you pair it with a Warrior, and you're doing debuffs and casting magic damage. And what I like about this game is some of the magic spells add curses to your hand. And if you're playing a Sorcerer, some of the Sorcerer cards, some of the skill cards from the previous game are in this game too, that allow you to discard cards from your hand. So if you have a Ponder or a Redraw, my hands are full of curses, I may take damage or life based on block. Nah, get out of here. Throw it out of here. It's out of here. With every successful run you do, or every successful run you failed, you level up and get more cards added to the pool, so your chance of winning goes up. This game does an excellent job in its gameplay of maintaining elements of the first game and adding more to it. I generally think that's a good thing, because sometimes, if the card drives well, it's tuning up a bit. So overall, I give the gameplay, as a fan of the first game, a solid 5. A solid 5. It's just beautiful. It does everything well and what it needs to be done. So, overall, let's talk about the final score of the game. So, I think the gameplay is peak at what it does. Movement feels good, combos feel good. I generally love strategizing for playing aggressively or defensively with any character class in the game can do that. And if you don't like how the deck archetype is built, you could just draft the deck with the cards you unlocked and then build your own deck and beat the game you want. So I still think it's a cool concept. I hope that other card roguelike games add this idea to their game, because that's just a really cool idea. I'm just not going to put it out there. So gameplay, peak. Visual aesthetics is nice. It looks good. Audio-wise, it's pretty, it sounds okay. That's about it. But overall, what do I give the final score of this game? I give this game a solid 4 out of 5. It's almost at perfection's door if they have more content. And I really mean that like DLC or new characters or other things. I know that's about it. Overall, though, it's an improvement of the first game, but not much new, which I think is really great. But overall, if you want my honest opinion without numbers, I'm telling you right now, if you are a fan of card roguelikes and you played Night in Tight Space, if you're a fan of card roguelikes and strategy games, this is a get it now. Get it now. It's available March 4th, 2025. It's a great game. It's available on Steam. I think they did a fantastic job upgrading the original of the first game. It's not relatively new, but it does it so well and snappy. It's a fantastic experience. It's very different from other card roguelikes you may have played before, and I think it does a good job of balancing elements of movement and combos and various class archetypes put together. You could make a party of all brawlers and just go ham and punch people. You could try diversity. You can make all spellcasters. If you can build it, you can make it. And I think this game is excellent at doing that. And once again, I want to give a huge shout out to Brawl Free for allowing me to play this great game. And I can't wait for you guys to try it out. You would love this game when you play it. And this game does a really good job of trying to teach you how to play its game. The game has objectives where, like, if you ring out a couple enemies or delay their spawn, there's a tutorial that happens every time a new mechanic happens, so you can learn the game better. The game rewards you for, like, hey, if you KO all the enemies in like 5 turns, you may get an extra card draw, you may get a heal, you may get some things, so this is really cool. So generally though, if I recommend you play this game, do not do the mythical difficulty. Start with the easiest difficulty, heroic I think it is, and then work your way down. That's what I did for Knights in Tight Spaces and Fights in Tight Spaces. And that's how I got the Appearances achievement. Because I learned the game by doing that. And I don't know if that was the dev's intention to play the game that way, but that's how I recommend playing it. Because you get to love the game more at an early difficulty, so you can understand what works, what doesn't work. You get to understand card draw. You get to understand maybe it's not a good idea to pack all the same type of cards in my deck because you have a diverse party member. Because if you have a brawler and 2 weapon users, and you're only putting fist cards, only like brawler type cards or grapple cards, because those cards, like the grapple mechanic where the brawler can grab and displace enemies, like slam them to the floor, choke slamming them, hitting them with the shoulder slam, or, you know, wall jump punching. Well, I think everyone can do wall jump punching, but things like that of nature. How are the other characters contributing to the fight? You have to think of ways of doing that. I made a defensive warrior that had the ability of taunt, so the enemies draw it and attack them, so I could just go wham, 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 mess them up. And that was a really good combo. So that was a cool way to do it. And I think these, again, you get to play the game in this way, and it's really fun. Knights in Tight Spaces is an excellent game. I, again, recommend get it now while you can. It's a solid game, improvement of the first game. I do feel like it's an improvement, but not much new. I really wish there was more content, and a small complaint I have is that the runs take a little bit longer compared to the first games. I think it's because of they having more playable characters that added. That's a good thing, but I was so used to Fights in Tight Space being such a fast game. This does feel a bit slower to it, but adds more to it. So, you know, maybe it's a good thing. It's a give and take. So overall, I highly recommend you guys check out Knights in Tight Spaces. It's available March 4th, 2025. This is GetSelious signing out. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Outerhaven YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at GetSelious, and follow me on twitch.tv/GetSelious, where I stream live. I also stream here at the Outerhaven YouTube channel. And on the Outerhaven YouTube channel, we have cool things such as podcasts, reviews, gameplay, and more here at the Outerhaven YouTube channel. With this is GetSelious signing out, and I hope you guys let these guys know in any tight spaces you can throw them hands. See you guys in the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.